welcome. Take it up with Jessica Lee. I'm here with Ryan Keller, who's the sales director at Viewpoint, a subsidiary of Trimble. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Good afternoon, Jessica. Thank you for having me.
I would love to hear more about what's happening in the construction industry. I know that's been hit, but hopefully with the vaccine, the pipeline of projects are back to its normal pace for you soon. Let us know, in the tech development for the construction industry, what are some of the very innovative ways of using the technology to drive efficiency?
Yeah, there's a lot of things out there, Jessica. I think that the industry is bombarded with and told about to help increase their efficiency, their productivity, the ways that their businesses can be better. I've been in the industry now for 20 plus years in the construction technology industry, and I've seen a lot of change over that period of time and the way that the industry looks at technology. From an industry that didn't look at technology as something that was a necessity to now, if you walk into a construction office and they don't have technology in place, you kind of wonder what's the situation. So there's been a lot of transformation when it comes to the industry. With obviously the current environments, with dealing with the COVID situation and the way that technology has come to the forefront. You and I are meeting digitally today. Construction firms had to pivot quickly. And what they found is that they need to be more agile as an organization. And you're talking about a industry where the core revenue producing areas of their business are nowhere near where their office location is and their data storage locations are. So a lot of firms have been looking to become more agile, transforming the way that their data is provided to them and their staff members to be able to be more proactive rather than reactive. And as an organization such as Viewpoint and owned wholly by Trimble, a large technology provider to the construction industry, as well as other industries, we're constantly looking and working with our clients and our prospective clients on how do we help them transform the data and the way that they want to access it, work with it, and make money from it.
Well, I assume that since Trimble has been, from the very beginning, is known for the mapping technology. And so I'm wondering, how is that going to help the clients now that you combine the technology from Trimble into your Viewpoint platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. You're talking about an organization, this Trimble, that started as GPS. That was their bread and butter, and they have many patents associated with that. And as they've grown over the years, as well as Viewpoint being a 40-year-old construction technology provider, what we've realized is that the way that technology can really help is by having a central hub of information. And the industry does look to find the right tool for the right job. They're looking at, how do I give my project manager a tool? How do I give that field supervisor a tool? Even the field laborer a tool? And the things that Trimble have identified is how do they connect the constructed world together? And by providing a centralized back office tool set, that's where Viewpoint comes into play, along with many data capture tools that can be deployed in the field, whether you're talking about automated robots and scenarios such as that, which is very far off stuff, but we're seeing some fruition of that, to just very simply capturing labor in the field and being able to do something with that data. And the key word that I look at is revenue generation, because for these organizations, their main focus is, how do I increase that margin, that profit margin of that project and ultimately of my organization? And their profit margins are razor thin enough as they are today. So if they're able to deploy the tool sets that help them to transform the way they look at their data, not just capture it, which I think a lot of firms have gone through that digital transition. A lot of people like to call it the digital transformation of their businesses. Now they need to look at ways to make that data work for them. And that's really where we're focused on, is being able to create that transformative data scenario for their business.
Ryan, I know you have a lot of large clients deploying your technology, and so I'm wondering when it's a new technology in place, how do you help them overcome the resistance to adopt changes in an organization?
Yeah, it's tough for these organizations to make a change, whether it's deploying a simple point solution or taking upon the task that we concentrate here on a Viewpoint of changing their back office ERP solution, which as I liken to heart surgery for their business. You have to keep the organization moving and going forward and continuing to process, all the while taking out that core mission critical software package and replacing it with something else. It is not an easy task. And as human beings, we're reluctant to change in the first place. I've done some reading and some studying on this, and on average, it takes 66 days for a human being to adapt a new behavior. So imagine somebody is comfortable with what they do on a daily basis, whether it's entering an AP invoice or producing an AI bill, and you're asking them to not necessarily change what they're producing, but look at doing it a different way, a more effective way, a way that could help the business grow. And it's difficult for people because they get comfortable. So one of the big things that we like to do is talk about our partnership in that change management. We believe strongly in it. And that's one of the things that Trimble believes strongly in, is being a very strong partner for the construction industry. Without looking at your vendors as a partner to your business, rather than just somebody who can provide you something, I think an organization can really realize the true value of that solution or tool set that they put in place. So by looking internally and saying to ourselves, how can I help them make a change without being completely disruptive? Going to be a little disruptive, but how do we help them to understand what that change is going to look like? And we're highly focused on that because it's not an easy task.
Okay, Ryan, it is a challenge, but is there a practical tip that you can share on change management?
Yeah, actually, so in my daily work, I'm working with a lot of different folks and looking at that change and how does it help them. So I was actually working with this organization recently, and they had this individual who was a little bit hesitant to making the change and wanting to make a change. So what we did, and this is something that we consistently do, is we sat down with that individual. Obviously in a virtual setting today, but we sat down with that person and we outlined for them specifically what they do on a daily basis. Why do they do what they do, and the steps that they take to get their job done. Then what we did is we took that information from them, quickly turned around to them a specific workflow. Within that workflow, we identified the areas that we could cut out 2 or 3 steps with their individual role. What we found was the individual was actually more open to the change. They were just worried that they weren't going to be able to produce what their boss or their organization was expecting of them. So by being able to give an individual an example of how that change is going to help them, we were able to effectively allow them to say, it's comfortable, I'm okay with it, but I need to see it and I need to understand it before I just blanket say, I'm okay with the change.
Yeah, and once you have somebody who has been converted to a believer, that person will help to influence the other people around them. To that positive energy will help in the culture of change.
Correct. Yeah, it's great to have champions of change, right? But it's a top-down attitude as well, especially in a construction organization. So if an owner or CEO or CFO is driving that change, they have to be that believer first, and they have to be able to prove that change. They have to be able to prove exactly what I just talked about, those 2 or 3 steps that's going to help them in their roles be better and more efficient. That's going to trickle downhill as well.
Right. I mean, you can try to do like a 5% change in the process to try to get 10% efficiency improvement.
Correct. And that could be just very simply by changing the way that they look at a report, or changing the way that they produce that same report, albeit with the click of a button, rather than having to export it to Excel and producing multiple fields of calculated columns. So there's a lot of ways that you can look at just that simple 5% change in their daily workflow can create that 10% effectiveness, which allows them to repurpose their time to other more important tasks.
Now let's go into sales. You've been doing it for a while, and this industry is very specific kind of experience and knowledge that you need to be successful. I think of sales in other areas where it's not difficult to bring in someone out of the industry, like somewhere else, to come in and be successful. But it seems like in the construction industry, there's a lot that you need to kind of know about the industry you're in order to do well. Can you explain to us in recruiting, in helping talent to be successful, what do you look for?
That's a great question, because the industry and selling construction ERP can be a difficult task. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces to what not only can the software do, but what the organization that you're selling to expects of it. I started in this industry over 20 years ago. I sold a mid-market product, and walking into my first meeting, I came from the realm of being a trainer and a support person. And I was going into it thinking, well, I know the software. I know how the software works. I can easily prove to these people that it's going to work for them. Well, what ended up really happening was I didn't understand how to present value, how to really tie in what not the software could just do, but why it was important to the business. So, and in the construction industry, I think they can see that. They can read it on people's faces. These folks are very in tune to what they do on a day-to-day basis. And if you can't talk the talk and walk the walk a little bit, they can kind of get to you pretty quickly and understand that. So normally what I'm looking for in an experienced enterprise level sales rep to sell construction ERP, and we're talking to firms that are generally $50 million up in revenue, is I'm looking for somebody who's got a great sales acumen. They're personable. They've got the ability to understand how a sales process should work. Two, I'm looking for somebody who has talked to and worked in the construction industry, whether it be in construction technology or they understand the industry as a whole. And then the third thing is, which is probably the harder thing, is to get that construction accounting background. Construction accounting is a totally different animal when it comes to how information is looked at and processed. You have terms like retainage and insurance liability requirements and all these different terminologies around job costing that to a lot of laymen's out there, it's not an easy task to pick up why the industry does what it does when it looks at that data and that information. So it can be tough to find some qualified folks, but when you do find them out, there are those folks out there that have been doing it for a little bit of time. And it's not that you can't train folks, it's just you have to expect that it's going to take a little bit of time.
And what tip would you give to them up front when you try to coach them into being successful? Because, I think new salespeople, sometimes they're impatient. So how do you coach them to be successful?
Yeah, I was impatient myself. So I'm a believer in the idea that it's more important to understand the business and to really dig deep into that discovery with the organization. That to me is slowing down the process in the beginning. You're taking the time with the prospect to understand, well, why did they raise their hand? Why did they come to you and say, hey, I want to do heart surgery for my business. I want to replace this and I want to put it in with something else. But what really is driving that? It's not just necessarily maybe efficiency. Maybe there's a couple key aspects to their business that they know are broken and they want to get fixed. But what we find is that by taking the time with them up front, learning about their business, learning from their individuals about how their business works, that slowing that process down early rather than just showing up and showing some software and hoping that it sticks, which isn't necessarily going to work, we're able to speed up the process later. People are excited to see the technology. They're excited to understand how is it going to solve those problems that you uncovered. And then when you can tie that back in with a return on investment and the value proposition, then there's some really fast moving processes at the end that can occur. And it makes life actually easier for the salesperson.
Okay, last question for you, Ryan. So looking forward to next year, and I think all of us are very hopeful that business will resume now that we have approved vaccinations. But it's been tough. It's been tough for a lot of companies to have to kind of slow down on the construction projects, and a lot of offices are maybe not going to open up completely like the way it was, since a lot of us are very comfortable working from home. So your thoughts on the future, what's happening during this year?
Yeah, it has been tough. 2020 is a year I'm sure we're all going to want to forget for a lot of different reasons. For 2021, though, I am just like you. I am hopeful. With the vaccines on the forefront, I do feel hopeful that we're going to get back to what I would call the new normal. What that's going to totally be, I'm not a seer, so I can't tell for sure. But when it relates to the industry, I look back to 2008 and 2009. At the financial crisis that we had back then. And when you looked at things there, that almost crushed the construction industry. There was a real downturn at that point. There was no funding for infrastructure. There was very little commercial lending going on. And the interesting thing about 2020 is we're actually not seeing that huge slowdown yet in lending. Now, we've seen some delay in the backlog or some winnowing of the backlog for these organizations that I can understand that they're a little bit concerned. But one of the things that I think that we're going to continue to see is we're going to continue to see the millennial move, or the young person's move, into the city locations. I think you're not going to see that be a change. And those folks are going to want to live and work at the same places. Now, will people feel more comfortable working from home? Sure. So maybe what the scenario is that we have a very flexible work policy at these organizations to attract quality talent, which is going to allow them to pick and choose the days that they work from the office and work at home. So I don't necessarily think that what you're going to see is a complete elimination of new building. I think we're going to see a lot of repurposing. And there are a lot of construction firms that are really diversified and ready to move forward into that area, where they're going to create better office spaces. You're not going to see the cubicles as much. You're going to see these open floor plans, and you're going to see people collaborating and working together, because I think we are starved for that human touch as well. So I don't think people are necessarily going to say, I'm only going to work from home. I think they're going to want to have that interaction and meet with folks and understand. And they're still going to also want to show off their offices too. That's a nice thing for a lot of folks, to have that really cool, nice office, and you can show it off to your clients or prospective clients. So I think we'll see some changes in regards to how the office space is used. And I don't think we'll see necessarily the large number of buildings going up, but I don't think we'll see a discontinuation of buildings going up.
It's been a great conversation, Ryan.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. I really do. And it's been a great time. Thank you.
There you have it. Take it with Jessica Lee, Ryan Keller from Viewpoint.